Hello. This is exciting. So my name is Tyson Gersh, and today I'm going to be talking to you about collective social responsibility. And oh, this just started working. Sorry. So today I'm going to be talking to you about collective social responsibility and how rebranding community engagement can engender positive change in the state of Michigan. What I hope to demonstrate in this presentation is how an individualistic orientation is prevalent within our culture and intrinsically has shortcomings that are affecting the state of Michigan. I'd also like to demonstrate how Michigan's current social and economic climate is in need for a shift in the way Michiganders are viewing our state and our communities. And I'd like to propose a alternative framework called collective social responsibility to kind of supplement our movement towards a more pro-social Michigan. And I'd also like to offer concrete evidence and support for how this is currently being employed by community interventions, and finally, to some, how collective social responsibility can effectively rebrand how we view community engagement and ultimately move us towards a more positive state. So I'm going to stop pacing. I think it's confusing me. I'm trying to look at both of these screens. So what exactly is an individualistic orientation? This is a framework with which individuals view the world. It's prevalent within Western cultures, and it essentially focuses on the individual. So the way that people in Western cultures, specifically America, tend to view the world is through the lens of I. This idea that the individual is the most important entity within a culture. It really promotes personal liberty, and it's been essential in the founding of our culture. We think about people like Steve Jobs and other significant historical figures who have really characterized this country based on individualistic ideology. However, while this has been influential in characterizing our state and our country and our culture, there are problems intrinsic to the ideology. This often leads to self-absorbed behavior, this kind of free agent perspective where you're only kind of focused on your own well-being and ultimately become more passive within social problems. You view, the community in opposition to yourself, that your time and energy needs to be spent enhancing your own, well-being, your own career trajectory, and that any commitment or investment within the community would in fact be detrimental to that. And this ultimately leads to reinforcement of social hierarchies. If we consider the difference between personal adversity and structural inequality, we understand that people are not all given the same opportunities in life, and what happens is that people who have basic access to resources, such as education or money, are able to kind of transcend whatever social class they started off with and move, upwardly socially mobile. And through an individualistic lens, we tend to view others that do not make the same kind of social trajectory as lacking motivation. And this is problematic because it does not recognize the privilege that comes with resource availability. So, to me, I think that a lot of problems within the state of Michigan are kind of a direct result of this, or at least have been contributed by this. We have, Michigan was hit particularly hard by the recession, and it's the result of, no jobs, lots of houses, but not people who can financially afford to live in them. And a lot of people fleeing the state because they had not necessarily built up social networks or community support networks that allowed them to stay in the state. So when they lost their job, they were forced to take the only thing they could, and that meant abandoning their community. it's important to recognize that this social and economic climate is more extreme in the state of Michigan, or in the metro areas, specifically Detroit. In Detroit, you have just this incredible excess of unused infrastructure. Keep in mind that the city was built to accommodate 2 million people, and it currently sits around 700,000. It has an enormous amount of vacant land, low access to quality food. There is a lot of momentum currently towards sustainable agriculture. However, a majority of people live in what's considered a food desert, which is where you do not have access to a grocery store that actually sells fresh produce or fresh food. And if you were able to go to those, you would have to have a car or take a bus. There's also high unemployment, which is related to a high poverty rate, and consequently a lack of taxable income. So what we have here is a very distressed social and economic climate within Michigan, specifically our metro areas. And these are important because the metro areas tend to be the heart of a state, and their social and economic activity has a ripple effect that influences the surrounding areas. And I think we've all felt consequences of the recession and just the lack of great things going on in Detroit. So what I propose is a shift in the way that we're thinking. Collective social responsibility is my idea of a novel framework with which to view social responsibility and personal responsibility. So the idea is to tie your well-being with the well-being of your community in a way that you create a reciprocal relationship where your success is the community's success is your success. You're effectively investing in the community, aligning your goals and values with that of the community in a way that contributes both ways, and this will ultimately lead to increased gains on both parties. So, to give you a more concrete and tangible example, I'd like to talk about the Michigan Urban Farming Initiative, which is a nonprofit organization that I founded in Detroit. So this organization seeks to engage members of the Michigan community in sustainable agriculture. We're effectively using agriculture as a platform to promote sustainability, community, and education, while simultaneously reducing the socioeconomic disparity. We've created this awesome board of people. We have an incredibly active volunteer base. To give you some background about how I kind of came into this role and created this organization, I worked in Detroit a few summers ago. I was testing nutritional literacy modules for the Urban Community Oral Health Intervention Project, and I was essentially recruiting women out of the Women and Infant Children office in the Herman Kiefer building in Detroit, and I was running these modules that's supposed to communicate nutritional information to people from a lower socioeconomic background, and this one woman came in, and she had 6 infant kids, and they all had orange Faygo in their baby bottles, and she was fully under the impression that this was orange juice. And through seeing this, interactive module, she just kind of broke down in tears. And I mean, it was really emotional. And to me, it made the need for food security incredibly salient, and highlighted the role that privilege and resource availability plays in, just feeding yourself. This very basic requirement to even, live, let alone be successful, become upwardly socially mobile. So this set the stage for me wanting to get more involved in the Detroit community. And at a community meeting, I met this guy, Darren, who's also a student, who at the time owned like 4 properties in Detroit because he was incredibly savvy about navigating the tax auctions and just knew a lot of background history. And over the course of the past year, we put together this organization. We were able to purchase a 6-unit apartment complex in the city of Detroit. We got it for about $5,000. We purchased it because it's situated on an excess of vacant land. You can see it in the photo there. This is what this neighborhood looks like, the north end of Detroit. You have a very low density of houses. The majority of people are even renting them. Most people live in poverty. And there's just this incredible theme of disconnect with your food and passivity within the food system. So What we're doing now is building a demonstration urban farm on this property. This is ultimately going to be a very comprehensive approach to promoting action and education within the food system. We're going to have an education center, nonprofit incubator, production hoop houses, community garden, orchard. Over the past year, we've been able to make a huge difference in the neighborhood already. We got this block, essentially, all this vacant land. We found that a lot of it was actually concrete, but had so much compost on it that it all looked to be grass. So this is just one of the interesting things you find when you purchase property in Detroit. And we've been able to uncover that. We've built a fairly large pumpkin and squash garden, and over the actual work days, actually go here, we've had over 650 volunteers come out to the site, which has been really fantastic. You can see that here. Go back. So our ultimate goal in the future, again, is to create a very comprehensive approach to promoting activity within the food system, using raised bed community gardens as the actual tool for people to start growing their own food, a nonprofit incubator space so that other green-oriented nonprofits can come and be more active in implementing their values and mission, multi-purpose room for workshops and seminars for people to actually get the educational foundation about why it matters to know where your food comes from and what your role in that process is. Again, we've had a fantastic support from the community, as it is, people from all ages and backgrounds. But my biggest point here is to talk about who benefits from this. So consider the different people that are involved in this organization. You look at Detroit residents, and by investing within this organization, they're effectively raising their property values, they're getting more educational opportunities, more opportunities for employment, access to quality food, and essentially just improving the overall area with which they live in. Consider also suburbanites, people that aren't from Detroit and have come in from out of town, maybe to volunteer. This is a target population that you actually want to start moving into Detroit, because it takes people from lots of different backgrounds and generations to come and build a community and build a functional, productive city. By using the volunteer experience as a platform, a comfortable environment to come into Detroit, people are actually getting exposed to what Detroit actually looks like. So despite the media demonizing Detroit is this really scary place that you never want to go to, coming in as a volunteer, you're kind of in this comfortable environment, and you get to really experience what the reality of Detroit is, which is ultimately just not a lot of people and a lot of unused infrastructure. So these people are getting to see what opportunities are available, and as a result, we've had several volunteers and board members come and purchase property, and effectively starting to move people into these neighborhoods and create this interactive community of people. And finally, social entrepreneurs, people who are actively involved in leading this organization. The experience of forming and running a nonprofit requires a lot of work and skills. And if you take the building the bridge as you walk across it approach, you're able to acquire all of these skills as you need them. Me personally, I've learned how to design websites. I've gained valuable business and marketing skills. Getting 501c3 status requires a wealth of legal literacy. It's actually incredible. I've got an increased social network. I now know all these fantastic people. And ultimately, just the experience of leading and community organizing carries itself outside of the nonprofit itself. These are skills that are valuable regardless of where you're at. And again, the community as a whole. So there are economic benefits. We have jobs being created, increases in population, productive and responsible use of multiple properties, and again, the educational and nutritional resources. So if we consider these gains collectively, this is significantly more than anyone could expect to gain individually. So again, what I want to really emphasize is that by aligning your interests and well-being with that of the community, you stand to gain a lot more individually. And for all of the people in this room, this is a strategic framework that can be endorsed by everyone here. So community organizers, entrepreneurs, and community activists, this is a tool to enhance yourself, your organizations, and the state of Michigan as a whole. And that's all. I think I ran out of time.